We're live. Awesome. We are live on Facebook at facebook.com/habit finder. Excited to be with you today. And we are also, as we have started doing every week, live on Clubhouse for Disrupt Your Week. My name is Paul Blanchard, president of Habit Finder. I am so excited to be here today. This is one of my favorite things that I get to do every week. I've been doing this show for almost 6 years now. It used to be on Tuesdays, now on Wednesday. Now with the advent of Clubhouse, an opportunity to come here and present on Facebook Live, and Clubhouse listeners get an opportunity to listen in. And then we sign off here about the bottom of the hour, about 20, 25, sometimes 30 minutes in, and stay on Clubhouse to answer questions, interact, and be able to offer even some coaching on whatever the subject was. So, but always love being on here on Facebook with my friends, Clubhouse with our listeners, and of course there's friends there as well. And I'm very excited for today's topic. For those of you who have never participated or listened to Disrupt Your Week, it's very important to understand that here at Habit Finder, we are completely focused on the foundation of how your brain actually works. What are the patterns that your brain is currently structured with in terms of how it processes your world internally, how it processes your world externally. Now, I was just having this conversation yesterday with a coach, longtime coach who's an incredible human being. And he said, the challenge with mindset is no one can measure it. So it just becomes this very ethereal, abstract conversation. I was like, I love that you noticed that. I love that you notice that mindset has typically been used as some buzzword and something to oftentimes drive people to buy stuff they don't need or to get into programs that might make you feel good but don't actually make a difference. And that is not because they didn't have all the intentions of making a difference in your life, but that is because mindset, which is actually the set of patterns in your mind, is something that we can measure. As a company, we made a very risky move. 3 years in, revenue is low. The programs we created were saturated because they looked like everything else that was out there. And we knew we needed to go find something that people hadn't found yet. And that was a way to measure mindset, because mindset is not personality. Mindset is not your behaviors. Those are often symptoms or outcomes or outputs of your mindset, the set of patterns in your mind. And we wanted to be able to measure those. Amy, that's what we wanted to do. Good afternoon to you as well. We wanted to make sure we provided Christy an opportunity to measure her mindset. Thanks for being here. To be able to actually understand the roadmap of your brain. What is it not that you think you think? That's where this gets tricky. There's what we think we are experiencing. There's what we actually experience. There's what we think we're thinking. And there's what the actual downstairs brain is processing in terms of patterns. And we want to think this part of the brain cares about whether it's a family member, or whether it's a friend, or whether it's our spouse. We want to think that this part of the brain cares about whether it's a dream we put on a vision board, or cares about whether it brings us some sense of euphoric serotonin or whatever kind of impact on the brain. No, it doesn't. It just cares about patterns. And it only cares about patterns that it considers are predictable. Thus, the concept of disrupting your week. Nancy, hello. We want to lovingly disrupt the patterns in your brain, your set of patterns, your mindset. Because no one comes, for the most part, there might be a unicorn out there. No one comes to Habit Finder. No one does personal development because everything in their life is perfect. Everything is going exactly the way they want it to. And Christina, I love that. I love that you love all this thinking that you're thinking, because that's the gift we have as human beings. Nikki gets this. We have this incredible gift of not just thinking about the world, thinking about our life, thinking about others, thinking about our career. We can think about what we're thinking about. It's so cool, but most of us never learn to do that intentionally, okay? Never learn to be able to think about why we're thinking that way. What's the risk in thinking that way? We just think that what we're thinking is our reality, is our truth. And it can be your reality, it can be your truth, but that doesn't mean it's the reality or the truth. And I'm not here to tell you that I have the reality and the truth for your life. But we have dedicated 20 years of our focus at Habit Finder as to facilitating a space where you can find it. And that comes from not wanting you to think the way I think, or my dad wanting you to think the way he thinks. We just want to help you understand your mindset, your set of patterns in your mind, and very simply, which ones are supporting you and which ones are sabotaging you, okay? It is very cool, Della. And one of the challenges is it feels like so much to think about, not because of the thoughts, but because of the judgment we bring in about the thoughts we're thinking about. That's the first thing you'll run into. When you go to disrupt yourself and you start thinking about your own thoughts, you are not just thinking about your own thoughts, you're thinking about what you're supposed to think about those thoughts. You're thinking about the social conditioning, the religious conditioning, the supposed tos, the shoulds, the musts, the peer pressure, the what's cool, what's not, what's politically correct, whatever influences you've experienced in the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of your life are bringing stories. That's what's overwhelming, Della. That's the challenge we've got, is we're trying to categorize, we're trying to sort, we're trying to judge, we're trying to figure out whether it's okay to be thinking those things, why it's so important to know you are not your thoughts. So again, welcome everyone here on Clubhouse. Welcome everyone who is listening on Facebook Live. We're going to dive into today's topic because yes, Suzanne, judgment is super hard to get rid of because it's been imposed and wired into us since we were children, before we even had the cognition that we have today, okay? I got to take off my Wi-Fi really quick because it's sabotaging the connection on Clubhouse, but hopefully that's coming through clearer now. So, but what we want to do is we want to be able to challenge that judgment, challenge those stories, and the only way we can do that is disruption. And thus we learn that the person who masters learning is going to have some really smart notebooks. The person who masters unlearning is going to have a really smart life. We want to be able to be just as good at unlearning as we are at learning, but most of us have been naturally taught to learn, which is in our, broken educational system. I think we can all agree it is not optimal, at least. It is all about memorizing patterns and regurgitating those patterns rather than learning to understand our own patterns and challenge them and think about them differently. So more on that in another Disrupt Your Week show. But let's dive in today to closing the loop, not the person. Something I get asked to do for major corporations, for network marketing companies, for entrepreneurs is they want to know how to sell the way that Habit Finder teaches. They want to know what makes sales more effective based on how all of our brains actually function. Because there are a lot of tactics out there. And tactics are great. They're important to have, but they are very poor in terms of compiling evidence for the long-term impact. Because tactics are all about a short-term gain, a short-term advantage. We want to make sure we're not deploying tactics that right now are getting us what we want, but are compounding and compiling these results that we don't want later on, okay? For example, McDonald's took advantage of a tactic. When it is convenient to eat, people will eat there. They're more likely to go through a drive-through to get something that can be ready for them in 2 minutes than to have to go home and cook and do all these things. And so they used a great tactic of convenience. And we played into that tactic. We as a humanity, okay? You wouldn't see billions of hamburgers sold on all their signs if that tactic wasn't effective. But here's the challenge. No one that I know of voluntarily gave into the tactic of convenience, wanting to give into the tactic of obesity, wanting to give into the tactic of gaining weight by giving into that convenience. Therein lies the challenge of tactics. Is without a longer term vision, without understanding the mindset, without seeing the way that the world is all connected, we're going to provide tactics that confirm what we want to be true. Like tonight, I want convenience to be more important than health because there's no detrimental factors to that tonight. But then years later, I realize I'm more overweight or out of shape or my arteries are not healthy or whatever it might be because we played into that tactic too much. The same thing is true of our lives. We want to be careful that we don't play into sales tactics that get us immediate results that then leave us financially obese down the road or relationally obese down the road. So, and in doing so, one of the first fundamental things we want to make sure people understand is you don't close people. You close loops. To close a person only works with weak people. And anyone who has a business of substance, has real value to offer, should not be preying on weak people. They should be building a strong base and using that to inspire other people to become stronger and then invest in what they have. And so the first thing we're going to want to understand about sales in terms of the way that Habit Finder teaches it is that we're not going for a close. Not to mention, over 86% of entrepreneurs, 86% of people listening on Clubhouse, 86% of people on this Facebook platform are more biased to an introverted approach and will feel yucky if they have to close. Like the kind of yucky you can't wash off in a shower. It will violate some of their greatest sensitivities for empathy and connection to feel like they have to convince someone, they have to close someone. But we do want to understand in terms of pushing back against some of those reservations, some of that resistance, is we'll want to close the loops. Now, there's a specific strategy we teach for doing this that I don't have the time to go into all of it today, okay, that has two parts. One is intrinsic validation, and two is what we call the sales arc. When these two are combined, okay, as long as you have a service or a product that is of value and worthy and is reliant on healthy relationships, meaning healthier relationships will cause them to use your product more often, which will cause them to buy it more often, which will cause you to be able to make more money with less selling, okay? Or you have a service where it's even more obviously critical that you need a relationship to want them to continue to invest in the relationship. Those two things combined, intrinsic validation and the sales arc, I've never seen anything that matches it. And I wish I could tell you that it's totally original and we totally came up with it of our own volition. No, it is because of what we've been able to learn because of the Habit Finder tool. Because of what the Habit Finder has shown us in terms of being able to scientifically measure mindset, actually be able to measure it objectively in 250,000 plus people with over 6 quadrillion unique variables, meaning no habit finder, no mindset is the same. That's pretty awesome. We were able to then start compiling and testing, experimenting things, and also working with people who did this really, really well without needing to be a closer or needing to have a certain attitude or a certain personality type to be successful. We're able to find principles that anyone willing to surrender to them and work through their resistance could be successful with. All I'm going to talk about today are the last 2 steps of intrinsic validation, and they are a new moment of decision and gaining agreement, because that is where we close the loop. Okay, not close the person, we close the loop. Meaning when you step into someone's world, you want to connect with them. You want to find out what they want. You want to find out what's important to them, what's hard about being them, all those things. And we step into that world, we open a loop. And we open a loop so that we can step into their world. At the end of that, it is very important that we close the loop. That doesn't mean we close the sale, okay, which came from corporate structures where you had the sales team and you had the fulfillment team, okay, and then you had a retention team. Why? Well, because it was compartmentalized. The salespeople always hated the fulfillment team. The fulfillment team hated the sales team because the sales team would overinflate, or then the sales team could say, well, the fulfillment team didn't do their job, and then the retention team was there to clean up that civil war and help all the people with buyer's remorse that got closed and whatever else. That model was tactical. It was like the McDonald's hamburger. Oh, for now, it's getting us customers. For now, the customers are loving us because it's convenient. But we didn't look at the long-term impact of that kind of mentality. And so what we now learn is we want to step into someone's world and we want to seek to understand them in their very specific guidelines based on how the human brain works to do that. But once we get in there and someone feels understood, there's a little hint for you. There is a massive difference. There is an immeasurable difference and distance between you thinking you understand someone and them feeling understood. That's one of the key elements that intrinsic validation bridges, is the gap between those two things. Because if you've ever tried to sell to someone or recruit someone or network with someone that you think you understand, but they don't feel understood, it's very hard to do. Even harder if you don't understand them and they don't feel understood. But more common is, oh yeah, I think I get this person. And we start telling them, yeah, I understand. Oh, I get that. Oh, I feel, felt, found, and all this other cheap substitution for deeper connection. To be able to actually ask questions that demonstrate you understand. But then we come to this point, this new moment of decision. We're going to ask ourselves, what do I have that is of value for this person? Not for any person I talk to, and I've just justified that everyone needs what I have. So everyone needs connection. So you should talk to everyone. You shouldn't get picky about, oh, I need to find the right people. That's the first step of starting to close down your business. You just want to find people and treat them the right way, connect with them the right way. But in this new moment of decision, is what I have of value to this person? Is now the right time to share it? And are they ready to receive it? You're literally taking a moment in the conversation to ask yourself these three questions. And once you move beyond all the steps of intrinsic validation that we teach, you become an intrinsic validator. You don't even notice yourself asking these consciously. It becomes a natural assessment of the relationship. But once you've had this new moment of decision, you decide, okay, what I have is of value to this person. I think now is the right time to share it. And I think they're ready to receive it. Then we go into gaining agreement. And gaining agreement, okay, for a closer, okay, is where you get an agreement moving forward that can help change their life. That doesn't necessarily mean a yes to your product or service. That's why this is closing the loop. Closing the loop on what they just shared with you and holding them accountable and yourself accountable to what you just found out deep in their world and demonstrating that you understand them. We found that this makes, on average, from someone who's already pretty good with people, a 40% increase in their ability to connect and close the loop. 40% increase with intrinsic validation in the sales arc. Pretty awesome. But again, it comes down to not trying to close a person, but closing a loop. You've opened a loop of connection. Closing the loop is just making clear what happens next. And sometimes you're going to say, no, what I have isn't quite right for this person. Or what I have is right for this person, but now's not the right time. Or now should be the right time, but I don't think they're ready to receive it. They just really shared some things with me that I'm going to want to just honor so they feel understood. And I can book a second call, or I can book another time to talk to them. Because you're taught, don't let them off the phone. Take advantage of the emotional height of the event. Guess what you're teaching the person? You can only make big decisions. You can only move forward when you're in an emotionally heightened state. And if you're in a relationship business, if you're in a service-based business where there's any kind of ongoing relationship and retention, that's a tough pattern to keep up on. That's like, I got high on drugs when I decided to join this person, and now I need stronger and stronger drugs to get high every time because that's the only time I engage. It's exhausting. We're not about taking advantage of emotional heightened. I'm just as big a fan as anybody of helping someone get out of their own way. But there are better ways to do that. Now, I will say, if you have a worthy product or service, you have a great thing, then more often than not, it's going to be the right time when you've stepped into someone's world and you listen to them. But every once in a while, you might get a feeling that this should be a call tomorrow, or this should be a get together next week, or whatever it might be. But it's going to be really hard to make that clear decision to close that loop if you got into the conversation with an agenda that you have to robotically fulfill. The only way this conversation ends is if you come to my opportunity meeting, because that's the only reason I started conversations in the first place. Well, no wonder introverted, more empathetic and sensitive people die on the vine in those arenas. While they continue to go to events watching the extroverts, which are a much smaller percentage, try to teach them, get all excited about being an extrovert, which they're not. We want to be able to be focused on closing the loop, not closing the person. We open with connection, step into their world, but then close the loop. And the loop might be, thanks so much for sharing what you shared. This was really impactful. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to serve you. But be clear about both sides. Don't be patronizing with how you close the loop. For example, I've taught clients intrinsic validation, the sales arc, and be like, oh my gosh, I'm stepping into people's worlds and they won't leave me alone. They keep calling me. I was like, well, how did you close the loop? Well, I just told them, thanks so much for sharing. Call me anytime. Oh, crap. I connected with them and then I said, call me anytime, and now they're doing it. Yeah, imagine that. That's what you said. But now it's actually happening because they believe you, because you stepped into their world and you were authentic and genuine and real. When before they may have thought that was just a cute way to end a conversation. So now they're actually believing you. Now they're actually doing it. You might want to be a little bit more careful about what you say, because sometimes all that person needed in the closing the loop is they just needed someone to listen to, and you were willing to fill that role. And it doesn't need to lead to a recruiting appointment. It doesn't need to lead to a sale. Sometimes. A lot of times people have been put on your path because of what your path can help them figure out and what it can add to their life. That opportunity, you're going to want to find courage in making very clear about what happens next, and make sure there's a clear plan of when that's going to happen next. If you want to talk to them again, don't get off the phone until you've got an appointment for when that conversation is going to occur. If that's all it was, be clear that, hey, so great to get to listen to you. We may never see each other again, but I'm going to remember you for a long time. Thank you. Take care. And you walk away. Or if you want to be their friend, hey, this was really powerful. Call me anytime. Make sure you actually thought about that and you want to be their friend. You have that capacity. You have that desire, which are not the same thing. Desire and capacity are two different things. We can talk about that another day as well. So, but so critical that if we're going to start connecting with people, because we all sell, okay? We all sell every day. And one of the keys to sales is not closing the person. We want to open the person. We want to open the relationship. We want to open ourselves. But we do want to close the loops. We don't want to leave confusion or ambiguity about what happens next. And we want to be able to step into their world and hold ourselves accountable to the authority we now have to have that new moment of decision. As long as it's based on loving them and serving them and adding value to their life, trust yourself and hold yourself accountable to it. Okay, you don't need to be a bull. Okay, you don't need to be a jerk about it. Hey, Paul Blanchard said I'm not allowed to let you off the phone until we have our next appointment booked. I'm not saying you need to do that, but you'd be shocked at how just a little bit more clarity, without the fear of offending or fearing that they're going to think you're pushy or whatever, letting go of a little bit of that will allow you to be that much clearer and that much more effective in closing the loops, so that you can create the next opportunity in that relationship to open the new one and close that loop and open the new one and close that loop. Last thing I want to say is this also gives an opportunity for us to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, where are the loops we've left open? What have we sold ourselves on that we haven't closed the loop on? What have we sold ourselves on in terms of our goals? What have we sold ourselves on in terms of our resolutions for the year? What have we sold ourselves in terms of what we're going to improve and relationships we're going to foster and little things we need to get done for our taxes or cleaning our backyard or whatever? And let's start closing our own loops. You'll be amazed at the kind of energy, karma, if you want to call it, that brings to being able to confidently and lovingly close loops with other people. As you open them, step into their world, and then close the loop, gain agreement. You're not gaining agreement on the sale. You're gaining agreement on what is the next stage in this relationship that doesn't have to lead to a sale. But when you really trust that, you're in the best possible position to lead it that way, if that is the decision that you make. So that's it for today. I want you to start thinking about not feeling like you have to close people, because there's typically two general categories. It's not everyone, but two general categories of introverts. They either try to close people and feel yucky about it and try to force themselves through it, or they get resentful that someone would suggest they have to close people. And so they go into this space of, I don't want to sell. I just want to serve. I just want to flounder around and connect with people and see if they accidentally fall upon my opportunity. We will want to be intentional, but there's a massive difference between being intentional and being forceful. There's a massive difference between connecting and convincing, between holding someone accountable and closing them. So again, seek for the connection, seek for the understanding, seek for the accountability on your part and theirs, the integrity required to do that, the authenticity required to do that, and close the loop at the end of the connection, the conversation, not necessarily needing to close the person or close the sale. All right. Thanks everybody on Facebook for being here. If there's anyone, I already saw several people do it. You can tag people, share this out, anyone on your team or in your network that you believe would be served by hearing this. Any of you on Clubhouse that would like to watch the first part of this presentation or go back and watch it again, just go to facebook.com/habit finder. We're going to hop off of Facebook and stay on Clubhouse for conversation, coaching, questions, anything I can do on this topic or any other that we've talked about in the past to serve. So please feel free to hop on there. Those of you who are not aware of Clubhouse, it's still in beta, so you've got to have an iPhone to get on. And it shouldn't be hard on other social media platforms to find people that are already on there and are able to invite you on, because that's how it works right now. It's by invitation only. But I highly recommend it. I highly recommend discretion and using it in moderation. Okay. But there are great opportunities to hop in there, let it be in the background, and then come back to it when you find rooms that have people in there that can serve you. It's fantastic. There's a lot of noise in there, I'm not going to lie. So just be aware. I think if you're intentional and you're clear about how much time you're going to spend and when, that it's a phenomenal place to be. I love it. So, which is why I'm on it right now. So, all right. Thanks everybody on Facebook. We're going to stay on Clubhouse. Bear with us. We're going to end the broadcast and we'll see you next time.